taking a tour with another tribe. Here's your look at McFarlane Toys, Avatar, The Way of Water, Neytiri Metkayina Reef. Neytiri from Avatar, The Way of Water is brought to life in articulated form with this 7-inch action figure featuring 22 points of articulation, premium sculpt and deco. Figure comes included with knife and bow, collector's stand, plus special backlight activated bioluminescence. Before we go and explore the villages of Marui, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of new Metkayina Reef, Neytiri, that we could have a look at in this review. Grabbing now the tape measure, let's measure it right to the very top of Neytiri's head, and don't worry, we'll do a couple of comparisons in a second. In the meantime, though, Neytiri stands 6.5 inches in height, or the figure's 17 centimeters tall. And, as promised, here's what she looks like next to the Reef Battle Jake Sully. Again, she's using a slightly smaller build figure, but it happens to be the same figure build as the previously looked at Neytiri from the original Avatar. It doesn't look like they are changing anything between the two molds. Yes, she is actually garnered in something different of an attire, but it does look like the bodies are exactly the same. Metkayina Reef Neytiri does come with one accessory that was already packaged before with the earlier looked at Neytiri, and she comes with something new. Before you guys start to guess what that exactly is, the thing that she actually comes included with that is the same. I spoiled it too quickly. Is the same thing she comes included with is the knife. And I'm going to bring in the knife that came included with the original Neytiri, and it does look like, unlike Jake's, that they are exactly the same. Paint, you could say, is marginally different. This one does have a little bit of additional silver added to it. But other than that, like the handles and stuff appear to be using the exact same molds. These also as well, making sure we grab the right one. Was it this one? I think it was this one that came included with this version of Neytiri. Does actually still have an option available where you can actually holster the blade. Located on the back of her body, just before you get to the tail, you can see right there, there's a sheath. Carefully, while not cutting a tail, just slide that in. You have to kind of be careful because she has this hair, of course, and the ponytail comes pretty close to that. But you're going to go take the knife, and again, you've got that little slot down the side. If you're having trouble doing it this way, one thing you can also do is cheat. Just tuck it into the side like that, and then just get the blade sheathed on the back of her body. Now again, the problem with this is the moment you start to rotate the figure primarily here in the torso, you're likely to unsheath the knife. In fact, you might even just knock it right out of that slot provided on the back here, and the knife's going to take a tumble and fall somewhere you're not going to be able to find later. So we're going to take some precautionary measures. I'm going to remove the blade for now, and I'm going to put it to the side. As for the other accessory, I want to say the rest of the accessories, but really the only other accessory that she also comes included with is a bow. She did get herself an upgrade, though, bringing in the bow that came included with the original Neytiri, certainly a more simpler design. And while the original bow did have at least included an arrow, the newer one doesn't seem to have an arrow at all. It has some nice detailing, I'll give it that at least. You've got some additional blue that's added here. And of course, overall, you got a nice looking brown bow here on the front, but it has a lot more coloring certainly going for it. And because she does also have two gripping hands stock with no additional hands provided with the figure, it's very easy to decide which hands you want to use because you have two options available. Simply just take the bow and fit that into her hand, and in fact, actually, the bow is not going to be going anywhere. The grip is nice and tight. There is no other place that you could technically store this on the figure, as there's no technical string here on the back of the traditional bows. There's no real place that you can actually loop this around her shoulder. So you're either going to be displaying her with it, or you're not going to be displaying it with it. That seems like pretty a straightforward question. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and remove the bow and put that to the side for right now, getting a closer look, though, at Neytiri. Now, Neytiri from the Metkayina Reef isn't that far removed design-wise to the original Neytiri that we looked at before. I would say, if anything, like the hair sculpt might be one thing that's changed differently. In fact, when you see it from the side, she has some additional braid work that wasn't present on the original figure. The first figure that we looked at sort of had the hair all pulled back. The newer Neytiri does have the additional hair that kind of drapes down the front of her ear, but she has certainly a lot more flowing locks on the back of her hair. Now, the story of Avatar, The Way of Water is that him and his family have to leave their home and find a new place to live, and they end up finding the Metkayina tribe. And of course, through that, there are some changes, only subtle more changes here on the figures. from the way that she originally looked in the first movie to what we get here instead. Now, what she does have in the original figure release was sort of a necklace that was full of these like little leaves here. The newer figure does have a lot more foliage here, concealing nicely the front of her body. It's still softer plastic, but they have successfully glued this to the body, so you're not gonna have any wardrobe slippage when you are moving the figure around. It doesn't hinder at all the articulation of the figure, not at all, in fact, even though it is technically an extra piece, an extra appliance that they put over top of the figure's body. I do really like the head sculpt. Although, to be fair, I really like the original head sculpt of Neytiri. This one just, I think, improves it a little bit. Again, just to bring in the original one. Not much does get changed, although I don't know if it's just maybe my own eyes playing tricks on me, as my eyes are something that's also getting older with the rest of my body as well. But it does certainly feel, at least when I'm looking at it, that the newer Neytiri seems a little older. Again, it's probably just my own eyes. I do like the head sculpt really quite a lot on this one. And like the Jake Sully we looked at before, I can just reach off to the side and already have the readily prepared black light, because the original figures and the newer figures also do have the illumination. As you run a black light in front of the face, you can see all these additional details that weren't present initially. You sort of see just the faint traces of that on the actual plastic, but it's not in fact until you actually shine a black light that you see a lot of that now to illuminate. She has it in her face, she has it in her neck, and she has it also in her torso and her arms as well. Doesn't seem like it makes any appearances, unfortunately, here in the legs. I don't think there's anything here on the back of the body either as well. It's mostly here just the arms, the torso, and the head. And again, if you are curious, you can bring back in the original Neytiri, and she had this same thing happening here. Something, unfortunately, I omitted in the original review. Running the light across it, you can see the way how bright those little tiny droplets of detail illuminate here on the figure. And that's everywhere, again, on the body, the torso, the arms. Nothing again on the legs, nothing again on the back of the body. Always good to have yourself a black light readily available. But overall, again, like, it's just a really neat looking figure. Some, again, color changes have been made, so it doesn't feel necessarily like you're looking at a duplicate figure in front of you. Not only has the clothing changed, but there's a lot more brighter colors also added here as well. The little loincloth, for example, that she had kind of was a more aquamarine coloring, where she has some additional purples and oranges that weren't present before. When you look at the back of the figure, again, it doesn't look like all that much does get changed. Even actually what was rather interesting is the way they've roped off the tail is clearly a different color. So she's matching the colors to the outfit that she has for the belt, at least. It kind of continues on that same trend of the brown. Feet seem to be the same. Legs, lower calves at least, and thighs seem to be the same. And the arms, other than just a few little things they've changed differently to what she's wearing, seem also like they're using the exact same mold to one another. For the articulation on the brand new Neytiri, and it's again strange for me to say the new Neytiri because technically it's still part of the same line. We're not looking at, this wasn't one that was released years ago, it just happens to be from two different movies. But the articulation still stays pretty much the same. Head rotates back and forth, though it is going to be a little bit more limited just because she's got the longer hair. You can still rotate it technically all the way around, but it's going to get hung up almost when you're reaching the shoulders or hitting the shoulder area. Head does look down, it does look up. And yes, if you could believe it, it does also hinge back and forth as well. Shoulders do come out, and luckily, unlike the Jake Sully we looked at before, where I believe he did have a loose shoulder, yeah, it was this side here, Neytiri doesn't have that problem at all. She has these little socketed joints, too, that serve more of a cosmetic purpose than an actual practical purpose. The arms rotate all the way around. The figure has a bicep swivel, a little smaller on a bicep, but still a bicep swivel nonetheless. She does have a double hinge on the elbow. I mean, you can get her to the point where she's patting her own back. Hands rotate all the way around. And you can also hinge those hands back and forth too. And even though she has a lot more sculpting happening here, she doesn't have any limitations when it comes to the articulation. Not only can you rotate the top of her body, but also you can also rotate the lower half that's concealed nicely, conveniently with the loincloth that's in front of her body. The legs seem to be once again on ratcheted joints. You can see, in fact, the ratcheted joints molded into the plastic. That allows a nice, not only a satisfying click every time you move the body's legs, but it also means that the legs seem to be less likely to get loose over time. You can take those legs, yes, move them forward. You can also, yes, move them back. So a mild swivel at the top of the thigh, just more the way it's been assembled than anything else. Double hinge on the knee. And when it comes to, again, her feet, you can move them up and down this way, move them back and forth this way. And once again, the figure does have toe articulation. Tiny little feet. Just again, really nice looking figure. Not much, again, more gets changed here. I don't want to say it's, I guess you could technically say it's cosmetic. Cosmetic usually applies paints. Cosmetic, I suppose, could also apply the new molding that they would have done, using still, yes, the same bodies. You can see how very different the two Neytiris are, standing side to side. Again, I really like this one. No problems at all with the original Avatar Neytiri. I do like, again, like the colors and the features. Again, it could just simply be my own eyes, but the features on her face seem sharper, seem clearer, or maybe that's just something I'm looking for. One slight oversight on this person's part, when actually I was taking out all the accessories for Metkayina's Neytiri, I actually put her display stand in a different area than where I had put her accessories. So, of course, many of you may have already noticed that when we looked at the accessory end of things for Neytiri, a display stand was completely gone and not part of the picture. When I was finally prepping the figure for final looks, I realized my oversight, and I did want to correct it by actually mentioning that yes, Neytiri from Metkayina Reef did in fact come included with the display stand. I'm using it right now to help stabilize the figure as I've got her in a more interesting enough pose and not just having her standing straight. One thing I do want to mention though about the Avatar Way of Water figures that McFarlane team have done, while I do like the designing of the figures and I'm certainly on board to collect the rest of these, I have to wonder though if it was a smart choice on their part to release back-to-back movie Avatar figures at the exact same time. The reason why I say that is casual collectors are only going in and saying, you know what, I liked the Avatar movie, I might just find myself picking up a Jake Sully and maybe picking up a Neytiri and just ending my collecting with Avatar at that. Going into a store and having two Neytiris on the peg, you gotta believe at the exact same time, blindly, you may just look at them and assume them to be the exact same figure. Upon a closer inspection, you may recognize right away that Neytiri from Metkayina Reef does in fact have a different outfit, but just to a casual collector may overlook that altogether. Diehard collectors, yes, would definitely be picking up any iteration of Neytiri, but I think only the casual collectors are only going to be picking up one of each one, a Jake and a Neytiri, and not probably going to be collecting everything that McFarlane's team is putting out. I have to wonder if it was maybe a smarter thing for them to only do the Way of Water Avatar figures, and then gauging how well those are successful in stores, maybe doing a follow-up, let's even say a year from now, in between Avatar movies. We don't even know when James Cameron's going to be releasing the next Avatar movie, but let's just say in between Avatar movies. Do like a gold edition or retro-inspired Avatar, the first movie line, in which all of those original figures of the Jake Sully and the Neytiri we've already had a look at could have been put on store pegs at that point. What do you guys think? Do you think they probably should have not had both Avatar and Avatar Way of Water done at the exact same time? Or do you think it was a good idea that they released two movie versions of the characters at the exact same time? Let me know down below your thoughts in the comments section. As well, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the Avatar Way of Water Neytiri Metkayina Reef version that we could have a look at this review. If you enjoyed this review, speaking of which, why not hit with a like? If you're loving the content you guys are seeing and do want to stay on board for the rest of the Avatar, because we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of Avatar figures and toys coming up in upcoming videos, then make sure if you haven't already done so, that you hit the subscribe button down below, yes. That you're turning on the bell notification, sure, and that you're coming back on a regular basis because there's always new content coming up here on this channel well into 2023. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.